The question of why episodes are the way they are comes down to a lot of very... Oh, who am I kidding? There's only one reason. And welcome back to the heart of the stories we tell. I'm Rob the host, and this is another look deep into what makes a story, a theory on storytelling by a storyteller who believes that every story has merit. And tonight's episode is why the number of episodes of shows are the way they are. And this all goes back to a question that was asked to me on Twitter, and one that was actually asked even before that by my own sister. And it all started with the Emerald City series. During Emerald City, she asked me why it is that there's only 10 episodes. Why are all these shows only doing 10 or 11 episodes instead of the 20 or 30 we were used to? And well, I said it's a complicated answer. It's something that comes down to a lot of reasons. But then someone asked me why the shows in the Berlantiverse over on the CW don't cut their episodes in half and keep the same budget, effectively doubling their budget. Same answer. It's complicated. But it all really comes down to bang for your buck. And let's be honest, when you go to bang for your buck, you have to worry about what you're buying. So let's talk about chocolate bars instead of stories for a minute. And yes, this is more than just me wanting to talk about my second favorite thing, food. Because you see, when you look at candy, and seriously look at it, do you want to pay more? No. But what if your choice was pay more to get the same amount, or pay the same amount to get less? Now, that question seems ridiculous on its front, but it's really not. It's how candy companies stay in business over the years. You get smaller Kit Kats, you get smaller Crunch Bars, you pay the same price. Hey, it's still a dollar candy bar, the candy bar's just less. And there's a certain amount of you expect to only pay so much when you walk by the register. And that's the same thing with TV shows, or stories of any type. Would you pay $25 for a book? No, probably not, unless it was something special. Would you pay a couple $1,000s to watch TV? No, but you pay $100 probably, maybe more to your cable company. So when you talk about paying the same amount of money for half as many episodes, you're really talking about doubling the budget. And that's where cost-benefit analysis comes in. And that's really what we're going to talk about. How much does it cost to make you so much money? Remember, TV shows are in business to make money. They're selling advertising time. So I Love Lucy, that was on forever, had 25, 26 episodes per season, 35, 36 episodes per season, and then went into these hour-long ones that were only a couple. I Love Lucy was relatively cheap to produce, even at its time. How many sets were there? Well, you start off and it's just Lucy's apartment. So it's just the main living area and maybe the kitchen, which is really one set. And then they'd go one place each episode. Sometimes they wouldn't even. But as the show was making more money and more people were tuning in, they could do more. They could spend more money. They could go to Hollywood. They could go to Italy. They could go make French wine. And I mean, these things just came about as the shows got more and more popular. They got more and more access. And as such, they could pay more per episode. And now with a show like I Love Lucy, we're obviously talking about paying actors and actresses, paying to build sets, and paying some cameramen and some scriptwriters. But what about shows that have more or less cost? Well, as you can see, there are more episodes on general than you're going to be talking about with some of these more modern shows. So let's compare some apples to apples for a second. The Thundercat cartoon of the 80s had how many episodes per season? 60-something? The one that they redid for a Cartoon Network that was really good and just never got picked up had less than half. Why? Was it more expensive to animate this new animation style? No, not really. I mean, yeah, prices go up over time, so it's more expensive today to do something than it was 20 years ago. But realistically, not that much more, not so you only have half. But the cost-benefit analysis is definitely different. And when you think about it, even with the new DuckTales, with bringing in celebrity voices to do these, gives you some extra pull. So at the end of the day, the Thundercats has a very, very low cost, though. Most animations do. You need to pay one animator, a couple voice actors, and you could schedule them easily. But even still, that was the same in the 80s as it is in 2015, 2011. So what's the difference? Well, let's get back to those shows that we were specifically talking about. Let's talk about 10-season shows. And there's 3 of them that I really like. 2 of them I've already covered a season of, and 1 of them I'm planning on. Westworld, Emerald City, and Game of Thrones. What do these 3 things have in common? Well, first, purely by coincidence, they're all variations on an adaptation. However, what they also are high-budget, low-episode count shows that are tour de forces, bringing in millions of views. Now just pause for a second, because you see I'm a writer, and I'm the type of writer that has not been published yet. And there's this whole trade-off. Would I take $1 million to see none of my stories ever be published? Well, I'm broke. I might take that deal. On the other hand, would I take the deal of me not getting one red cent but all of my stories published and get to be seen by millions of people? In a second. I'd be no worse off than I was today, but my stories would be out there. There's a certain amount of love of craft. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the money. And these shows are all about the Benjamins. Because at the end of the day, they're putting out special effects. They're putting out high prices to actors. They're getting some of the best writers. They're throwing up advertisements. They have people going out on these shows doing things to try to get your attention to watch these 10 episodes. And why are they doing that? Because they're selling these episodes. These are how they make their money. And it all started, out of the three of them, with the Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones was one of those stories that people said could not be adapted. It was too vulgar, it was too nasty, it was too complex, there was too much high thought, it was too high of a page count, you'd have to do 100 episodes a season, and whether you think these episodes were well written or not, you have to admit these episodes have caught the public's eye. By some accounts, these books and these shows are some of the most watched and anticipated things of this generation. And you know what? That's because they're well done. But could they have been done with 22 episodes per season? Hell yeah, but it would have cost them more than twice as much. And it probably wouldn't have been as good, because there are trade-offs. And these trade-offs are in time and in how much you can put there. And bigger isn't always better. If you're making a movie, if you were going to make Game of Thrones, the live-action movie, you could throw $200, $300 million at that, tape for 6 to 8 months, and get 2 hours. But at the end of the day, if you did that every 2 hours of episode, you'd be throwing $1 billion a year at this. And it just isn't cost effective. You're not making $1 billion worth of product. It's the same as any other time that you sell something. You can only sell what it's actually worth. And let's be honest, no matter how much you put movie quality, Lord of the Rings quality, oh my god, beautiful visuals and writing and this and that, Game of Thrones isn't making that much money, and they know that. It's a TV show, not a movie. But to be honest, it's more like a movie than we care to admit. And TV shows have started to realize that, and people have started to realize that. Just look over at Fox and other channels. They're starting to duplicate what I call the Netflix theory. Put out a handful of very well-crafted episodes. They brought X-Files back, and when they did, they brought X-Files back in a big way. But only for 6 episodes. Having said that, though, one size doesn't fit all. For that, compare and contrast multiple seasons of the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with its sister program that took place only during the few weeks of its downtime after Christmas, Agent Carter. Agent Carter had a higher value per episode of budget, but it had many, many less episodes. Why was that? Well, because they wanted to keep the bang for their buck. And let's be honest, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this year, between LMD and Ghost Rider, definitely hit high-quality marks. But it's one of the tricks, and it's a trick Game of Thrones plays, too. Have a couple of episodes that don't cost as much, so that you can use a big budget for one big push. And in Game of Thrones, it was always episode 9 they put their big push on. And they had to make condolences for that. They had to sit there and say, hey, we'll have less direwolves because we want dragons. And I understand that those are trade-offs that have to happen because there's no budget in the world that's perfect. So let's talk about the second part of that trilogy of series. Westworld worked off the exact same theory, and it being on the same network, HBO, had a lot of the same people behind it as Game of Thrones. The idea of doing a 10-episode season is nothing new for them. They did it with True Blood, they did it with several series, even as far back as The Sopranos, and the idea of having a high-budget, high-cost value show is well worth it to them, because they're bringing in all of not just the advertising money, but they launched HBO Go on these series, make no mistake. And in the case of Westworld, in show they even had a little bit of a pot shot at how much it costs to do these things. And let's take a look at when NBC decided they were going to try to copy HBO's formula. Emerald City is exactly like Westworld and Game of Thrones in many ways. It's an adaptation of Wizard of Oz, well, it's an adaptation of the books more, and it's also an edgier update, much like Westworld is. It's also full of things that are provocative and things that will draw the larger attention of the audience, and in doing so, they're hoping that for one big push, 10 episodes, they're pulling in large numbers. So to sum up, why is Emerald City only 10 episodes? Because someone did a cost-benefit analysis. If they spent X, they'd get Y back. And part of this is also why you can't just double the profit by cutting the episodes of the Berlantiverse in half. Because their cost-benefit analysis is different. They're running a marathon, not a street race. And at the end of the day, they need to get these people to tune in for 22 or 23 episodes, so they have to spread the budget out amongst it, because they're not going to give them more money. But let's be honest, HBO and NBC may be the shows I talked about up till now, with a little toss back to Fox and ABC. But it's really a whole new broadcasting concept. And it was brought to you by a little company you may have heard of known as Netflix. See, Netflix came up with the original idea of sending you out movies or streaming you movies, but then they said, hey, wait a minute, what if we produced really high-quality series? What if we did it really expensively, but for the purpose of keeping our subscription up? And they came up with some great things. I've heard great things about Orange is the New Black and several other series that I have not actually gotten a chance to Netflix yet. But you know what ones I have? I've seen shows like House of Cards. And you know what? They have a huge celebrity, they have great casts, and they have great concepts. And Strange Things was one of the first things I saw that blew me away. And all you need to do is take a look at a little comedy like Grace and Frankie. I mean, just look at the picture here. Look at the caliber of actors they have. I already review Voltron, and it's another great cartoon. And of course, because I review just about everything comic book, the Marvel Netflix series is something that I've spent a great deal of time looking at. And you know what? All of it works on this same principle. They put 13 episodes as the Marvel Universe ones. 13 episodes, they spend as much on them, if not more, than they do the 20-something episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And they get people to tune in, and they get people to binge watch. Guilty as charged. You know what? Iron Fist, I can almost guarantee you I am going to binge watch. And it's not just these shows, because there's all new ones coming out too. So let's talk about the next ones I'm probably going to get caught binge watching. Well, Marvel's Defenders, of course. Because let's be honest, everything Marvel I'm pretty much going to just do. But there's a new Castlevania series coming out. And it looks pretty cool too. And Strange Things 2 is coming out. And then, of course, at some point I know they've worked on, but I don't have the exact details on Punisher. And all of these are working on this same concept. Short episodes, short seasons, designed to make you watch them in bulk. And make no mistake, the audiences of today expect, and the creators of today plan for, the fact that people are going to buy the season on DVD, watch it on Netflix, download and stream it, whatever they're going to do. And bite-sized pieces become huge meals. I Love Lucy never had to plan on someone sitting down and watching 26 episodes in a row. Thundercats didn't even plan on that, and that was only, 5 years ago? But these 10-episode shows do. They're a movie in and of themselves, and that's pretty cool. Just look at what happened with X-Files, and when they came back, and just everything with Netflix. So we're going to change it up for the next couple of weeks. For the next 3 weekly videos, these 3 series are going to get dissected, each one season. So, Season 1 of Westworld, Season 1 of Emerald City, Season 6 of Game of Thrones, as if we were doing a book report, as if we were looking at each individual element of fiction. Based on your feedback, I will decide whether to keep going with other series like this and do an entire maybe month or so of this, or if we should go back to individual episodes. For now, I'd like to ask you to like and share this video and subscribe to my channel to help me build the community so that we can take a look at all the stories, big and small, and explore the heart of the stories we tell. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.